Good day and welcome to Godly Thoughts with Mkoma Tasi. Today our scripture reading is coming from 1 Samuel 2, verse 1. Hanar had been praying a long time for a son, and now God had answered her. And now she had a son, and the son had been born. She had named him Samuel. We all know the story. But she then says something that stands out to me. She says, "Now I have an answer for my enemies. Now I have something to say to those who used to laugh at me." Let me tell you the truth. The biggest challenge we have is of not having something to say to our enemies because of our situation. Our enemies are saying we are poor, and we are praying for God to answer so that we can say to them, we are not poor. Look at what God has done in our lives. Sometimes we have to understand that in as much as we can say many things to assert our faith, sometimes we need to show people instead of just say things to them. We need to show people what God has done for us. When we show people what God has done for us, we feel a lot better than when we just say, we know one day this and that will happen. If it is a case of your child not performing at school, you want to be able to show people the report book and say, look, she is now doing better. He has now improved. You want a situation in which God's power is seen veritably in your life, and you can prove to people that God has answered you. This really helps your situation. So Hannah had been praying, and there's this case where Penina on the other end mocked her because she had children and Hannah did not have children. You see, there are certain things in life that if they don't happen, you don't feel human being enough. Hannah during those days lived at a time where being a woman meant being able to conceive children and be part of a family or raise a family. And Hannah was simply a wife without any children. This made her feel insufficient. Sometimes being an educated person means you should have a job, and you don't have a job. You just feel like, I'm a believer, but I don't have anything to show for it. I'm a believer in God, I don't have anything to show for it. Even though I believe in God, people don't even go to church, mock me because they are better than me in terms of everything. They have better life, they have better children, they have better everything. And this sort of dampens your spirit. You don't have anything to say to them because whatever they say to you sort of looks correct. They say you are wasting your time going to church because you are still poor. And yes, they can prove it. There is nothing you can say, but there's only something you can show them. One day when you finally get a job and you testify to them, I told you God is faithful. You don't want to live a life where every time you continue to wish something would happen so that you can at least silence your enemies. Silencing your enemies has become so important. People end up lying that they have made it. I've heard people saying, fake it until you make it. People end up posing for photos on other people's cars and pretending that it is their car when it is not. You see, it is very important to understand that in life, you live life for yourself. You don't live life for others. But we live life as a community as well. And sometimes you don't want to feel left out. Sometimes you don't want to feel like your children are the ones who are always an example for something bad. When people want to point to a child who is struggling, they will point at your child. When people want to point to a child who is not doing well, they will point at your child. When people want to point at a family that others should not become, they will point at your family. But you are a believer. This causes a lot of struggle because as believers, we should be an example to the rest of the unbelievers. We should be an example in doing good. We should be an example in living good lives as well. Because how are you going to convince people that God answers prayer when none of your prayers are answered? Unless you want to tell us that you're not praying for food, you're not praying for cars, you're not praying for houses, you're not praying for better education for your children, then we would want to know what exactly you are praying for. So sometimes answers to prayer bring joy to the heart, and they give you something to say to your enemies. When you're witnessing and saying, come to God, there's better life there, you have to demonstrate to them by the way you live that indeed there's better life. So this is sometimes the dilemma we find ourselves in as believers. We want to prove to others that the Christian life is more rewarding. We want to prove to others that coming to God is more rewarding. But we ourselves as people, our lives are saying the opposite. We want to pray to God and say, Lord, let me not be a false witness. Let me witness what I'm experiencing. Help me to experience a better life so that I can wholeheartedly testify what I'm experiencing and what I'm living in my life. Otherwise, ciao, and let's pray for answers, and God will give them to us.